The Philadelphia Phillies continue to ride through their roller coaster of a season, but they may find some new stability in the pitching staff. We have some huge updates in not just Ranger Suarez, but top pitching prospect Andrew Painter that each are going to directly impact this Phillies team. I want to break down why Rob Thomson has some difficult decisions to make in the coming weeks and months with some changes on the way for the Phillies staff overall. Obviously, we know a couple of these storylines have been lingering throughout the season, that Andrew Painter has been a guy this organization has spoken incredibly highly about for years to this point, and all expectations were that he would make his major league debut at some point, and it seems like some point soon. And even sooner than that, we have Ranger Suarez set to step back on the mound on Sunday to return to this Phillies team. I'm going to dive into exactly what each of these means, but before I do want to remind you guys, as always, to make sure you are smashing that subscribe button. At this point in time, just 30% of you guys watching these videos here on Phillies Digest have hit that button just yet. It is absolutely free. It helps us out a ton here on Phillies Digest, so make sure you're hitting that button, dropping a like on this video, and any comments that you have in your mind, drop them below. But let's get into the topic of today, which is a little bit of everything with this pitching staff. And I do want to start off with the Ranger Suarez conversation, as we got the news that Ranger Suarez will start on Sunday for the Phillies. So obviously Suarez is a guy who started the season injured, and this will be his first pitching game of the first game of the season that he will step foot there. And there are some interesting complications for what it means for the rest of this rotation. And dive into exactly what those guys look like. We obviously know these names. That at the top of the list, Zack Wheeler, the guy who is the clear-cut ace on this Phillies team, although he's getting more of a run for his money than I think we've seen in other years, that we know who Zack Wheeler is going to be in the present and moving forward for the length of the season. Jesus Luzardo, a guy that I think has certainly exceeded all my expectations, and I don't think I'm unique in that opinion there. He not just has the stuff, there is some character in the way that this guy pitches, that he can bear down. There's some grittiness to Luzardo that I've been really impressed with. I'm talking about him finding himself in jams and finding ways to get out of it, that it does not matter when it's second and third and one out. He's bearing down and getting out that batter at the plate. There is some character in the way that he approaches. My confidence in Luzardo is miles ahead of what I ever could have expected could have been the case at this point in the season, and I do think that is worth noting for the rest of this conversation. Now, Aaron Nola has been hit around a little bit this year. There are no ways around acknowledging this. Probably his worst start that I can remember in a Phillies uniform, just speaking about the first handful of games for the season here. But I do think that logic should rise to the top here, and we know who Aaron Nola has been over the larger part of his career. I'm confident he will settle in and find himself at some point, even though it has not been the smoothest start to the 2025 season there. Nola is going to be just fine. Christopher Sanchez, a little bit of a different outlook here. He obviously had that little forearm issue that popped up, missed one start there. He's back in the rotation as normal and has looked like himself when he did step back onto the mound there. When Sanchez is cooking and looking like himself, that is a guy that I have the utmost confidence in. And frankly, if we flash back to before that forearm injury popping up, we were looking at increased velocity this year. The movement I thought was better on a lot of his pitches. Felt like he reached another level as just far as his confidence and read on a game, that just knowing how to pitch, when to throw this, how to set up this next pitch. I thought he took another stride in that to start the season, and I am confident that he will regain and settle back into that same pathway that he was very clearly on. And this is where the conversation gets interesting. Now, obviously, you see Ranger Suarez with the injured list 15-day right below Taijuan Walker, who is the man of the hour here. Now, I think all of us could have looked at this Phillies roster coming into the season, looked at all the pitchers, and noted that Taijuan Walker maybe stands out a little bit in not the way that you would want to be the case. Now, in fairness to the guy, I think Taijuan Walker has exceeded certainly my expectations, and I do think everyone would feel that way. That no, his stuff has not gotten better. This dude did not discover how to get his fastball up to 98 miles per hour magically in the offseason, but what he did do is bear down. Every time he's on the mound, the dude battles, and I have nothing but respect for that. That no, he's not going to overpower guys. He's not going to be able to throw these nasty splitters and sliders and curveballs that hitters can't touch there, but he's going to give you everything he's got, and I got a lot of patience and a lot of respect for guys that approach things that way. Taijuan Walker, while he will never live up to the contract that was handed to him, and before we criticize him directly there, I would sign that contract if it was presented to me, even if I was not able to deliver to those abilities there. That is an organizational mistake, not quite a Taijuan Walker mistake there. But with that all said here, I do think that he's likely the odd man out of this overall rotation there. Now, with that said, the fact that he has pitched at the level that he has to start the season does give you a little bit more wiggle room if there are injuries the remainder of the season. I don't have the same level of panic of having to throw him back in the rotation and pitch every fifth day as I thought I would have at this point in the year. And with that being said, there still is the chance of them rolling down this lane of the six-man rotation. Now, I'm going to circle back to this conversation once I get Andrew Painter in the mix here, but I did want to acknowledge the other problem that Ranger Suarez's return presents, which means you got to make room for him on the roster. And shout out to our guy Luke Arcani, my co-host on this very channel here, who tweets out a week ago, I think Carlos Hernandez was the obvious odd man out when Ranger Suarez was ready to return. Now, I don't know if it's that simple. Banks has options, Hernandez doesn't. Both Banks and Hernandez have started to find it. Do they consider sending Orion Kirkring down for a week to get him figured out? I think that option should be considered, even though it is unlikely. And I do agree with what Luke is saying here. This is not a vote of confidence against Orion Kirkring there. I still believe in the long haul that this guy is going to be a foundational piece of the bullpen, a high leverage guy that they count on for years to come. But I also think it's fair to assess that the version of him that we've seen this year has not quite lived up to expectation. And I do think that there's something to sending a guy down to build up his confidence and then putting him back on the spot here. Let's not forget the pathway that Orion Kirkring took to get to the majors in the first place, that he was on such an accelerated rate to the point where he barely had any regular season action before being thrown into the playoff mix for this Phillies team. That's how quick things were, and that obviously being 2 seasons ago at this point. There's not been a lot of chance for Orion Kirkring to just have some, I don't want to say fun, but pitch in low leverage situations where the weight of the world is not on his shoulders. In the long haul, I still think that's going to be good for him. Pressure makes diamonds kind of thing there. But I do think in the short term, in this specific moment, it's fair to assess that even while he's experimented with adding a couple pitches and trying to diversify his options on the mound there, he's still basically a 2-pitch pitcher. It is the fastball and it is the slider. And that slider is his get-out pitch, but it has not gone with the same bite this year. Now, that last home run that I think is being thrown at him a lot, and in that game, by the way, I'm pretty sure that is the game that they came back with a game winner on Bryson Stott, slide into home on an error. So ultimately, I guess it worked out for the Phillies there, even if it wasn't the cleanest pathway to getting there. That wasn't an awful pitch by Kirkring. I think that thing was down in the dirt. You're getting swings and misses on that a lot of time. Unfortunately, it did result in a 3-run home run and the Phillies losing the lead on that specific case. So I think Kirkring should be considered. But what I'll also say about this is I think the mentality of the kid probably decides what that direction is. Is that something that would actually be beneficial for him, or is this something that he would take too personally to where it hurts his confidence in that way? Rob Thomson should have a much better feel on that than any of us could possibly have, but I do think that that conversation should at least be had. Now, with Carlos Hernandez and Tanner Banks here, they're both guys that I think are fine. I'm not going to lose sleep if they decide that Carlos Hernandez is the guy that needs to send down, and if that means another organization gets a chance at bringing him, it's not the end of the world to me. I will say he's shown me a little something in recent games. I was pretty much out on him entirely coming into the season and had no real feel or real belief in him being a real face of this bullpen, but I wouldn't lose sleep if this is the end of the Carlos Hernandez experience. Now, another theory that has been floated out there has been Ranger Suarez to the bullpen. I've seen a lot of that on the timeline, a lot of kind of conversations and talking point. And while I get it, while there's a part of me that understands and can see the angle here, we've seen Ranger pitch in a variety of roles here. And I do think he's the unique personality as a pitcher that it does not matter what the setting is when he comes into a game. Whether this is no runs, no hits, no outs, it is the top of the first inning and he's on the mound, or it is the bottom of the ninth inning where you need to get 3 straight outs to win your team the game. He approaches things the exact same, man. And we've seen him do these in basically every single situation. He's pitched out of the bullpen. He's pitched in long relief. He's been a high-level starter for this Phillies team, and he can do that. But why I don't quite see it working for the bullpen in this conversation, he's a lefty, man. And when you're looking at the bullpen as a whole, to pull up each of these names here, I still have confidence in our left-handed pitching. That Matt Strahm, Jose Alvarado especially has been excellent this year. Pretty locked down. Strahm, confident. He's had a little bit of slippage here and there, but still a guy that I believe in as a high-leverage guy. Then we go to the right-hand conversation, and things get a little hairier. Jordan Romano has not been an ideal start, although he has been trending a little bit in a better direction. Orion Kirkring, who I just mentioned. Joe Ross, we'll give him credit, pitching much better of late. I believe he's on an 8.2 inning scoreless streak to this point. Let's keep that rolling. Let's keep building. Jose Ruiz, a guy that I think the Phillies have really trying to thrust into this next category as a potential, high leverage guy. I just don't quite think he is that, and I think that realization should come. So this all brings it together that it's really right-handed pitching out of the bullpen that is the greater concern, and that isn't something that Ranger Suarez could solve. Now, a guy who could potentially solve that, That is Andrew Painter here. And the latest update that we do have on Painter is that his next start will be Thursday with AAA Lehigh Valley. Now, the mindset with Andrew Painter has been pretty clear that this is a guy the Phillies view with incredibly high regard. And frankly, I've seen some pretty ridiculous claims from people speaking about him. Just what a dominant pitcher he's going to be, a surefire ace from day one. There's a lot of people talking like that. I don't want to put that level of expectation on his shoulders. And I will say that this is a situation, to me, you probably got to keep the wider picture in view here. While in theory, Andrew Painter, all 6'7" of him, throwing 99 miles per hour, could be very beneficial to this bullpen, you really have to think out what is the best long-term path for him for growth. Now, there is the case to be made that would be putting him in the bullpen, getting him more regular opportunities to pitch. There also is the case to be made that can mess with a guy, that there is a slightly different approach when you are pitching out of the pen, when you do have just one inning that you have to get through or whatever the case may be. This is another conversation where I will allow the Phillies to have a better feel for that direct there. But the good news in all of this is the reinforcements are coming. That I do think while pitching has been far from the biggest issue on this Phillies team, it hasn't been perfect either. And I do think Ranger Suarez rounds out this rotation in a way that is just fitting for this Phillies team. So I'm excited that Ranger's stepping back on the mound. I do hope that he stays fully healthy. And we do know, unfortunately, he will be a free agent at the end of the season. It will be interesting to see how things shape out coming forward. I do kind of think the writing is on the wall that this guy gets a massive contract somewhere not named Philadelphia after this season, but I hope I'm wrong, that he is a guy that I'm just personally drawn to as a favorite player of mine, and do hope that he sticks around for the long haul. I've never seen a pitcher be able to feel the way that Ranger Suarez is, as cool, calm, and collected he is under any circumstance there, but who knows, maybe Andrew Painter could knock him right off that peg for a guy who is one of my favorites there. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Most notably, I want you to weigh in on the 6-man rotation versus 5-man rotation, and if it were up to you, which of those bullpen arms would ultimately be set down. Drop those in the comments below. And once again, I do want to remind you guys, if you have not already, to make sure you are hitting that subscribe button. So make sure you're hitting that button, dropping a like, dropping your comments below. I'll be back talking to you next time right here on Phillies Digest. Peace.